Hey, I'm JayTheDevGuy. I'm making a single-player game based off of the Team Fortress 2 engineer, and today, I'm going to give him and his sentry gun something to shoot at. Now, you don't need to know anything about TF2 for this video. This is just a game about a little engineer who uses a single turret to defend from attackers. But my prototype had a pretty massive problem, and that's that these attackers were dumb. Like, really dumb. And listen, anyone who plays Team Fortress 2 or multiplayer games can tell you that it can be plenty of fun to play against idiots. But for my single player game, I need enemies that can actually pose a threat. Now, my goal for these enemies isn't to have some incredibly smart AI that can adapt to your behavior or have coordinated strategies with each other or, I don't know, emulate an entire ecosystem. I think having simple, straightforward enemies is ideal for the sort of game I'm making here. You know, they're predictable pieces on a chessboard that you solve like a puzzle. But for a third-person shooter, they need to be more competent than this. So I need these NPCs to be a lot smarter, but before I even make them smart, I gotta solve some more basic problems. Like right now, if I tell all these enemies to go attack this tower, they have an embarrassing case of Three Stooges syndrome and just block each other from getting anywhere. Now, I could fix this by making them able to walk through each other, but then they all overlap into one combined mass since they're all taking the same path to the same location. Now, some developers solve this by making enemies aware of each other when they navigate through the level, which I would have loved to do, but Unreal Engine's official solution to this didn't work for me, and it has like no documentation. Okay, side note, if anyone knows why the Detour Crowd AI controller doesn't work for me, it won't use the nav mesh. I've tried deleting the nav mesh and starting over, but the AI won't move to anywhere. I love this engine, but these obscure features get no support, and anyway, some developers won't even have NPCs navigate themselves, but instead have like a mastermind AI that controls all enemies at once to ensure that they work together. Kind of like a hive mind where it makes the decisions for everyone instead of characters making independent decisions themselves. And those are both good solutions, but they're complicated, and again, I don't need or even really want smart AI in this game. They can be dumb AI, but I do need them to, like, work. So the simplest solution I've found is to just have enemies slowly push each other away if they start to overlap. And this works by if an enemy gets overlapped by another, it adds them to a list. And then every frame it checks to see if anyone's on the list, and if so, apply a force to everyone on it. And so after tweaking the values to get just the right amount of force, this pretty much perfectly solves the problem. It can lead to some dumb situations, like enemies pushing each other off narrow walkways, but this is a level of dumb I am perfectly happy to accept, especially if it means I can keep my code this simple. And I'm happy with this pushing solution, but there is still one more problem. And that's if enemies are all told to go target this same tower, they all try to walk to the same exact spot to attack it, and they just end up endlessly pushing each other away from that spot instead of attacking the tower. Thankfully, this can be solved by having them each find a random location near the tower, and then walk there instead. And now that they're not fighting each other over the same square inch, they appear so much smarter, even though their code is still very dumb. But don't get me wrong, in a 3D shooter like this, I still can't get away with enemies being this dumb for much longer. They have no way of fighting back when the player attacks them. Their shots get blocked by walls that they can't tell are there, and they're literally incapable of making any other decision except blindly walking towards the tower I tell them to attack. Really, they can't make any decision at all. So to fix any of those problems, I'm going to need to implement a behavior tree. Now, behavior trees have been a popular way for AI to make decisions since Halo 2, and it's basically just a flowchart. If this condition is true, do this thing. If false, do this other thing. So like, for example, if you see the player, go attack them. If you don't see the player, return to your spawn point. If you're low health, find cover and heal. Then when full, return to combat. If you want to watch your favorite streaming content hosted in another region, then use a VPN to watch from another place. This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Okay, let me set up a scenario I'm sure most of you are familiar with. You want to watch the prequel to Young Sheldon, but when you go to your favorite streaming service, you realize it's no longer available. And when you look it up, you see that it's still available in France. But what, now you gotta buy an expensive plane ticket just to watch your favorite show? And worse, now you gotta go to France? This is a burden that I wouldn't wish on any of you. But you're my fans, so you can use nordvpn.com/JayTheDevGuy to sign up for a 2-year plan with a huge discount and 4 bonus months. And with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, there's really no risk of disappointment here. You know, unlike visiting France. But let's say that you do still want to fly to France. I'm not sure why you would, since you already got the Big Bang Theory, but let's just pretend. Well, you can use NordVPN to connect from another country and actually, this is for real, get better deals on plane tickets just because you connected from somewhere else. I mean, think of all the croissants you can buy with those savings. So again, that's nordvpn.com/JayTheDevGuy. It helps fund me and my game development, and it saves you from having to go to France. Okay, what was I talking about? All right, so behavior trees are basically a flowchart that AI can use to make complicated decisions. And I'll start by showing something simple. Like the main goal for enemies is to walk towards a tower and attack it. But I want them to find a random point around the tower, like I said earlier, so they don't all fight over the same spot. So I'll code that first. So after they pick a random location around the tower, walk towards it till they're close enough, and once they are, start attacking it. And that was a really basic example and really doesn't need a behavior tree as it is now, but if I need my enemies to feel just a little more lifelike, that's where behavior trees can really help out. Because right now my enemies don't notice the player or even react after being shot by them, which I feel like either of those should make my enemies notice you, but programming an AI to see another character can be surprisingly complicated. And thankfully for me, Unreal Engine has a built-in solution to this called a perception component. Now, I love working with components, which I've talked about in a previous video, and this perception component can be added to any character in Unreal Engine. So after some setup, I can easily adjust things like how far the AI can see and how wide their field of vision is. This green, round, boxy thing represents where the enemy can see right now. Now, my characters are 2D sprites that always face the camera, so I'm going to let it see 180 degrees around it since the enemy will never have its back facing towards you, so, blind spots don't make sense. But this is looking pretty good. Going into debug mode shows this green sphere for when the enemy sees me, but the moment I'm covered by a wall, the AI immediately forgets I exist. But Unreal's perception system lets me set an age for anything it sees, so that basically just means the enemy will know where I am, even if it loses sight of me for, let's say, a few seconds. Now, in debug mode again, I can see this black line that shows, even though the enemy doesn't physically see me, it still tracks my movement and can now aim accordingly. These dumb enemies can now see stuff. Thanks, Unreal. We're still good. But don't get me wrong here, seeing is one thing, but I need these enemies to react to what they see. And this is where behavior trees come back in. I'll set it up so that if the enemy sees a valid target, it'll ignore the tower, ignore walking to it, and start shooting the target. And, well, this is basically accomplishing my goal for this enemy. Just unfortunately for me, this enemy is still just a little too dumb. Let me explain. So the enemy needs line of sight to see me initially, but the player can easily move behind cover by the time that they're shot at, making the enemy idiotically shoot the wall and posing no threat. I need them to move themselves somewhere where they can actually see and shoot their target. And the process for AI to find a strategic position is surprisingly complicated, and I think really cool. Unreal Engine calls this an environment query system, or EQS, but this is how a lot of games handle this sort of thing, so anyone can watch this, Unreal Engine or not. So first the EQS needs to spawn a bunch of spheres to survey the environment. These spheres can spawn from anywhere, I'll elaborate on that later, but for now we'll have the spheres just originate from the enemy. So yeah, throw out a bunch of spheres just to feel out the environment around you, and now we can have each of those spheres check and see if it has line of sight to the target. These blue spheres in this example can't see the target, so they can be ignored for the rest of our testing, and any of these locations would be a valid spot to try and shoot the player. So how can the AI decide which of these is best? I basically just add another test to sort these valid locations by distance, preferring spots that are closer to the enemy. And the AI now has a way to survey the environment around it, find good vantage points for shooting back, and pick on the best result. And this dumb enemy is starting to feel a lot less stupid now. To me, this whole EQS stuff has been one of the most interesting parts of game development so far, and I love how a problem so seemingly simple like find a good spot to shoot back can take so many layers to just work right and more to feel right. And as you might expect, I can plug this EQS into the behavior tree to get it working alongside everything else. So now, when the enemy sees a character through its perception system, it'll stop attacking the tower, use an environment query system to find a valid location to shoot, move there, then attack. And if it doesn't see the player for a few seconds, it'll find a random point near the tower, walk there, and continue attacking it like before. So that's it. I've made AI. This must be what everyone cannot shut up about. I'll be taking my billions of dollars of venture capitalist money from investors who don't understand technology now, please. Link to the Patreons in the description. And all this work has finally resulted in an enemy that is both simple to understand as a player, but complex enough to actually do its job in a third-person shooter. And while this example has all been for one enemy, the best part is that this perception system, EQS, and the behavior tree can be remixed into so many different types of enemies now that the foundations are laid. So, for example, instead of finding line of sight to attack the player, I could easily make the goal of an EQS to find a spot that can't see the player, so it can run and hide from them. Or I could rearrange the behavior tree of another enemy so it can completely ignore the player to blindly attack the tower like some tower defense game grunt. I could have another enemy run an EQS not around itself, but around the player so it can find a point up close for like the perfect mid-range attack. This foundation for enemy AI could certainly be expanded into something way more complicated like those games I showed earlier, but understanding these more advanced techniques will also just let me design simple enemies that actually manage to feel different to fight against. And now this prototype is so much closer to actually being like a fun video game to play. I wanted to make the simple act of engaging with an enemy to be interesting enough on its own, but now that I have this figured out, I am ready to ask the big questions about the future of this game, like how many enemies is reasonable for a player in a turret to fight off, or should the game mode be more defensive or offensive? Should the sentry gun itself be the base that you need to defend? I'm really trying to figure those sorts of things out right now, so if you have any suggestions, I'd actually love for you to write them in the comments. I'm a year into this YouTube thing now, and I have, for better or for worse, read every single comment on my videos. Honestly, I've really loved interacting with my audience though, especially through my Patreon's Discord server. I have these tiers where I'll draw you a profile picture of whatever you want, and after finishing a few, I realized, holy crap, I was just paid to draw someone else's fursona. Getting a paid fursona commission is like the rite of passage for digital artists trying to make it online, and well, that's when it dawned on me. I set up Patreon to help support this channel and turn this game into a viable job, but this drawing tier is helping me hit career milestones faster than I could have ever imagined. So what if I could use this, hand-drawn profile picture tier and use it to speedrun a prosperous art career? So I'm very happy to introduce JayTheDevGuy's Art Commission Bingo. If I can get a bingo on this card, I truly believe that I'm gonna make it. We've got Fursona in the middle, obviously that one's free. I'm a little surprised there's been no Sonic OC yet, but we can look at this left column here with Rule 63 and Deltarune. I think it's a very promising column. If I were a betting man, that's probably where I'd expect to get my first bingo. Looking at this middle row though, it has the free furry spot, obviously, but since it also had Deltarune, I had to nerf it with Scalies and Muscle Ladies. Now, you'd think Muscle Ladies would be a buff, but you have to remember that this is a bingo for paid Patreon tiers, and I need subscribers, not subs. Overall, I think this is a pretty balanced bingo card, and it's been a wild last year doing this YouTube thing and developing this game, and I don't know, maybe with all the stuff I'm doing here, maybe it'll be something. I don't know. like the video if you like it. Subscribe to see where all of this goes. Subscribe to see if I get the bingo. And just thanks for watching. Seriously. See you next time.